Hey, what's up everyone? Jeremy here. And I wanted to break down responsive web design for you, which is pretty much the act of making sure that your website looks proper on every single device, whether it's a tablet or a desktop, whatever the case is. You need to ensure that your website will render the same or at least properly on each device. And you think about how big the average monitor is, you have a lot of space to work with. So it's nicer for the designer, but you have to also keep in mind about smaller devices such as a phone or something. You want the user experience on your website to be as easy and smooth as possible. Otherwise, your potential customers or just your users will find another website to use. It's just something that is expected nowadays and you need to do it. So if you know anything about CSS, you might have heard of a thing called media queries. But you're going to have to utilize media queries if you want to actually take advantage of having a responsive website. So what is a media query? It's a good question. Media queries, you can actually set conditions on your website so it'll respond to different devices and it'll look properly on every one. So for instance, when we look at the desktop, and here's just an example, we have a 30% logo space and then we have a 70% banner space. And then we actually have a full-size navigation with links on each one. And you can see the main content takes up 80% and the side menu, for instance, is 20%. And then we have a footer of 100%. But when we bring this over here, you are losing a little bit of something. The only change that I actually did was I stretched out the main content to make it 100% of the width of the browser, and then I made the side menu underneath that main content. Everything else is the same. We have a 30% logo space, 70% banner space, whatever. But for a phone, you're going to pretty much have to stack everything on top of each other. That's pretty much what we have here, on this example. We have the logo, banner, navigation, main menu, and then we have that side menu, but it's on the bottom now, and then we have the footer. Let's just hop over to the computer really quick, and I'm going to show you how to actually use these media queries that I'm talking about. So let's head over there now. Okay guys, so now that we're on the computer, let's check out this code right here, which is pretty much the code version of that mockup that we put on the whiteboard. And you'll notice that it has the exact same elements as well: the logo, banner, main content, navigation, footer, etc. And all this up here is, as you probably could imagine, the CSS for these elements to style them. We can get into this a little bit, but I'm going to actually have a very in-depth tutorial on how this whole setup works, so I'm not going to get into it too much. But all I'm doing here is giving you an idea on how media queries work and what they are, and just an introduction pretty much. So let's go ahead and run this to get a visual on how this is actually going to function. And this, what you're viewing right here, is probably a tablet version or maybe a smaller desktop, but if we were to zoom out a bit, so this is the biggest version of our website that we made, and it's a very simple website: logo, banner, everything that we already talked about on the whiteboard. And if we were to zoom in though, we're going to see that it fills the length of the browser perfectly and everything still looks pretty readable. If we zoom in again, we have it looking exactly the same pretty much, but everything is still readable. And let's continue, and you'll notice that eventually it's going to start getting a little bit crammed, and we could put a media query right there to make the font maybe smaller, or whatever's necessary. But what would be a solution would be something like this, where it would just lay on top of each other. So after you get from, let's say, I don't know, what was, I think it's like 480 pixels maybe. Yeah, it's 480 pixels. Once you get to 480 pixels, you are going to change the website completely, and everything is going to lay on top of each other as we already described. So it will create a lot easier way to read, and this is a responsive website now. So even if we get to the smallest version of this website, it's still going to be perfectly fine. And this is actually only one media query. You would have more than one if you want to cover, tablets and more fluidly different devices. You're going to run into bugs where something just does not look right, or it's just this specific H1 header that all the H1 headers are messing up. But regardless, that is a quick way to make your website responsive. And all I'm doing to achieve this is this tag right here, which would be at media screen and parenthesis max width colon 480 pixels parenthesis. And then you would open up with the bracket that closes down here, and then you would have all of your separate styles inside of that with their own brackets and styles and all that. To put it simply, what this tag is saying is anything that is smaller than 480 pixels, do this to all this. Okay? So you could do the exact opposite and make this, let's say 780 pixels and switch the max to min, and this would say pretty much the exact opposite, which is anything that is larger than this size, do this. Okay, so you're gonna have to mess with the min widths and the max widths. They're a little tricky initially, but they're easy to get and they're extremely powerful. They add conditions to your CSS, which makes them so much more powerful, as you can imagine. But you're kind of limited to the conditions that you can do. It's usually just size for devices. However, media screens, media queries, they are awesome, and you should take advantage of them so you can have a responsive website that is expected in 2016 going into 2017. So stick around, because I'm going to drop a new video that's going to be all about how to use this media screen and breaking down this website even more, because there's a lot more that comes into responsive websites than just media screens. Even though that is how you make it responsive, there are things we need to get into, like floats and clearing floats, different things to make sure that our website renders correctly. So anyways, thanks for watching, and please hit that subscribe button. Feel free to leave a comment down below or any questions, and I will see you in the next video.